acronym SIPDE. This is the essential defensive driving technique. Now this SIPDE has been taught for generations. And what it means is when you are driving down the road, you are scanning the roadway, looking for and identifying potential hazards. When you see that potential hazard, you are predicting worst case scenario. You decide what you're going to do and you execute that plan in time, okay? That's what SIPDE stands for. So as you're driving down the road, you should be scanning. Remember I told you you have to look out in order to stay in your lane anyway. You should be scanning the road 20 seconds in advance. That's a quarter mile. Now in Virginia, in the country, that's about as far as you can see with them before you get to a curve or a hill, right? You're scanning the road 20 seconds ahead. Then you're going to come back 12 to 18 seconds, 4 to 6 seconds. You're scanning the road. You're scanning to the left, you're scanning to the right, you're looking in your rear view mirror to see what is behind you, and you're looking at these lanes beside you in your side view mirrors, then you look down at your speedometer. Train yourself to have a pattern for scanning. Look far, look near, look left, look right, look in your rear view mirror, look in your side view mirror, look down at your speedometer. You should do that like 6 or 7 times in a block down here in a commercial area. You're scanning the road, okay? Now this technique has been around forever. If you were to take a CDL class, this is what they would teach you. I've had guys in my class that drove Humvees in Iraq. This is the way they teach you. This is the basic defensive driving technique. By doing that, you are watching all these zones around you. You're aware of who is around you. As you're scanning out here on a multi-lane road, and there's cars beside you, and suddenly somebody cuts you off, you know there's a guy beside you because you just scanned. Right? That's what you're doing. You're scanning. You're positioning yourself in a place where you're not going to be in danger. You've got a safety zone in front of you and a safety zone behind you of at least 2 seconds, right? And you're seeing what's going on in front of you so that you can decide. Remember I told you that when you need to brake, it's going to take you 3/4 of a second to perceive that you're going to have to brake. It's called perception time. In 3/4 of a second, at 20 miles an hour, you cover 20 feet, okay? It's going to take you that long. It takes you another 3/4 of a second to react, to begin to brake. So you're predicting in advance what you have to do so that by the time you're right here, 4 to 6 seconds back, you've already executed your maneuver to avoid a conflict and don't get yourself in the middle of that position. New drivers don't scan the road. This is a learned skill. When you're driving and you're in an unusual situation, I still go through this in my mind sometimes. When I'm driving in heavy traffic and I come up on a construction area or a place that is a heavy intersection or an unfamiliar traffic patterns, I go through this in my mind. Scan the road, see what's going on, check out the traffic patterns, know what lane you need to be in at that intersection way before you get there because you're scanning way ahead. Look around, look for people pulling out of neighborhoods, pulling out of shopping centers, pulling out of gas stations. Watch for that guy. See if he looks at you. You should be watching people when you're driving. You're interacting with these people. You need to be watching how they drive and what they are doing. For example, this happened to me. You're driving down a commercial area and you notice that there's somebody pulling out from a shopping center. They're talking on the phone and they never look to the left. Never. And you're watching them to see if they do. You realize, here you are, 12 seconds back, you realize they're going to pull out and they're never going to look. So you change lanes. That sure enough, they pull out. But you have completely avoided that conflict in advance. They don't even know you did it. That's defensive driving. That's protecting yourself on the road. That's the way you do it. You plan ahead. It takes mental practice to realize you have to stay back. You have to stay back, you have to watch what's going on, and you've got to let the people in front of you make the mistakes they're going to make, because they're going to. Everybody's not going to do the predictable thing. You're watching. Can you do that if you're texting? Can you do that if you're messing with your radio? No, you really can't. That's why it's so important to keep your eyes on the road. In fact, it is a reckless driving ticket to take your eyes off the road if you're in a wreck. If you're in a wreck and the policeman comes up and says, "What happened?" "Well, I looked down." Reckless driving. You can't take your eyes off the road for this reason. That you're propelling yourself at 45 miles an hour in an ever-changing environment. You have to keep your eyes on the road, and you got to be scanning so you know what's going on. Never take your eyes off the road for more than 1 second, and go through this. Intersections for you are your most dangerous environment that you're going to be in. If you are T-boned in an intersection, a T-bone accident very often results in severe injury or death. You get T-boned in an intersection, you get crushed between the car and your dashboard. You need to scan the intersections before you get out there. In fact, you need to create a buffer zone. Did we talk about a buffer zone? Okay, you need to create that buffer zone. When you create that buffer zone where you lift off the accelerator and cover the brake, don't brake the guy behind you. You confuse when you hit the brakes unnecessarily, because that's a communication thing to the guy behind you. But lift your foot off the accelerator, cover the brake. It will slow you down 1 mile or 2 an hour is all. Scan the intersection before you go through. People run red lights a lot. There's a lot of intersections because the traffic is growing. People are in a hurry. Some people, I've sat at an intersection before and seen people half a block back gun it to make it through the yellow light. Of course, they don't make it. If you're not over that white stop line, you're supposed to stop for a yellow light. But a lot of people do not. So you need to rescan those intersections. If you're the first person at the intersection, scan the intersection before you go out. If you're the guy right behind him, give it a scan. See if he makes it before you go out. I mean, think about what you're doing in intersections, because that is where most of the accidents occur when you're driving out here, particularly in urban traffic, but even in rural traffic, right? You come on those little rural areas and there's an intersection. That's where your accidents are most likely to occur. You're going to adjust your mirrors, your side view mirrors, in what they call the BGE setting. BGE stands for blind glare elimination. Now they call it glare elimination because if you're ever driving down the highway and you're like probably sitting in the passenger seat, but when you're sitting in the driver's seat, sometimes the car behind you, their lights will reflect from the side view mirror right into your eyes. That setting your mirrors 7 degrees out in the BGE setting will eliminate that also. But the other thing it does for you, it is eliminate your blind spot. When you're driving, you are looking, your field of vision is everything you see from peripheral to peripheral, okay? When you go to get your driver's test, they test your visual acuity. It has to be a 20/40, not 20/20. They're going to check that. There's a small 3% central vision or conic vision where you're focusing, right? That's your visual acuity. That's what they're checking. You're taking pictures with your eyes, right? But the rest of that is your peripheral vision. Your peripheral vision is your side vision. And when you get your driver's license test, they blink those lights, right? Which light is it? Which side is it coming from? They're testing your peripheral vision. Your peripheral vision will pick up mass and color and movement. However, as you begin to increase your speed, your peripheral vision narrows to where when you're traveling really fast, you really are traveling with tunnel vision. I mean, think about it. When you're sitting in the car, what can you see through your peripheral? You see nothing. It's just flashes, right? Every car has a blind spot. When you are sitting in your car, there is a spot directly beyond your peripheral vision that you cannot see. So for your left side, it's just over your left shoulder, and on your right side, you would look through the passenger rear window to check your blind spots. You can tell where your blind spot is like this. If you're driving down the road and you're on a multi-lane road and you're looking in your rear view mirror, as soon as this car that's coming up beside you disappears in your rear view mirror, you should pick him up in your side view mirror. That gap in between is your blind spot. With this setting, this BGE setting, you're going to virtually eliminate your blind spot. You don't see your own car, you're looking at the lane beside you. The only time you would want to see your car is if like you're hauling a trailer and you want to look down your car and you can see the trailer behind you. But otherwise, you're not going to see your car. There are, even with the BGE settings, there are like mini blind spots. So you're still going to have to check. You're still going to have to do an over-the-shoulder check. You're going to have to glance. And when you're checking your blind spots, your body should not move. You do not lean forward and look down the lane and see what's down there. If your mirrors are set properly, you should be able to see that lane from your mirror. But you do want to glance. You want to glance just over your shoulder and make sure there's no bicycle, moped, or small vehicle there. Just over your shoulder, a quick glance. Your line of sight is always your path of travel. Do not take your eyes off the road. Your line of sight is your path of travel. Keep your eyes on the road. You're propelling yourself 45 miles an hour. In 45 miles an hour, you're covering 66 feet in 1 second. You're propelling yourself down the road out here in this commercial environment. Things are changing constantly in front of you. Don't take your eyes off the road. But in order to change lanes or check your blind spot, glance quickly. Your peripheral vision will pick that up. Glance quickly through this mirror. Now I'm going to tell you the 5 times that you're going to check your blind spots. There are 5 times you must always check. You're going to check your blind spot when you are changing lanes. I'm going to tell you what I tell most of my classes. My drawings get to be more like football plays after a while. I do a lot of X's and O's and arrows. Just going to have to keep up. Because you're going to be changing lanes. This is the way that we're going to teach you to change lanes. And you will learn this when you do behind the wheel. This is a skill that you'll learn. We're going to teach you to change lanes by signaling. You signal. You check your mirrors. You glance over your shoulder. And then you go. Smog. Now, if you're not changing lanes this is the way you need to practice. Okay? Here you are, you're going to change lanes. Signal. Yes.
Sorry, should we be taking notes?
No. You don't need to. I'm going to give you notes. You're going to signal, your mirrors, glance over your shoulder, and go. When you change lanes, maintain your speed or speed up. You do not hit the brakes and slow down to change lanes. You're in a flow of traffic, stay in the flow. Okay, I mean, unless somebody in that lane is going slower than you, obviously. But so you're going to signal, check your mirrors, glance over your shoulder, and go. You're going to signal, check your mirrors, glance over your shoulder, and go. It's a smooth rhythm. You're going to change lanes exactly the same way in all situations. You're going to change lanes out here on Broad Street. You're going to change lanes in an expressway environment, always the same way. Use that technique, smog, okay? Learn it, practice it. It's your basics, just like learning to hit the ball when you're playing baseball. Learn this basics. You're going to check over your shoulder or check your blind spot when you're making a turn. If you're making a right-hand turn, especially in an area where there's a lot of pedestrians and there's a lot going on, you want to glance over your shoulder. Glance to the right. Make sure no one is stepping off of the sidewalk. There's not a bicycle beside you. Check over your shoulder when you are turning. When you are turning left, check over your shoulder before you make that left turn and before you get in that left turn lane. Someone can try to come up beside you and beat you to that light. You know what I'm saying? Check over your shoulder. Make sure nobody's right beside you, especially if you don't get in immediately. So when you are turning, you're going to check your blind spot. Now in Virginia, just a general rule, it is always against the law to cross over a solid line of any color, white or yellow. You cannot cross over. So that means when you're getting in that left turn lane, you got to hit those broken lines or you've broken the law, okay? When you are swerving around an object, you want to check your blind spot, okay, before you do. Say you're driving down the road and there's something there, a big pothole, you want to miss it, be sure you check. Make sure there's nobody beside you before you swerve. When you are merging into traffic, you want to check your blind spot twice. You're going to check your blind spot, and you're getting on the interstate, you're going to be looking over your shoulder, picking your spot, but before you merge, be sure you check your blind spot. That traffic is moving fast. They can come up beside you and you missed it. Check your blind spot. And when you are pulling into traffic, you're pulling out of a curb from a parallel parking spot, check your blind spot. Check your spot that you're going to pull out on, and before you pull out, check your blind spot again. Those are 5 times that you need to check your blind spot. Now, when you first start learning to drive, the first thing you need to do is establish a good pre-drive protocol. Now, protocol means to do things in the right order, right? You want to establish right off the bat a good order for getting in your car. When you get in your car, you're going to come out and you're going to look around your car, because you've got around your car, you have what they call a blind zone. Here's your car, right? You're sitting in your car here and you have what they call a blind zone or a footprint. All of this footprint is what you cannot see when you're sitting in your car. That's the asphalt below you. If I were to put one of you out here in one of these driving cars and have another student walk behind him and say, look in your rearview mirror and tell me when you can see their feet. An average car, it'll be 65 feet before you can see them. That's your footprint behind you. This is called your blind zone. So you're sitting in a parking lot with a lot of children in and out, a restaurant. You've got this whole area around your car you can't see sitting in your car. You know what I'm saying? So you come out to your car and you look around and you see who's around you. Don't just back out. Children are small. You need to look around you. You need to check before you do anything. Don't just look in your rearview mirror and think, oh, I got this, because there could be a child behind you. The first thing you do when you walk out to get in your car, you need to check your car out. See that if you've got a flat tire or a low tire or a damaged tire. When you're driving down the road, you really can't tell where your car is. Now, if you're having trouble doing what they call tracking your car, which means you don't know exactly where you are in the lane, or any of you having trouble, maybe you always seem to hug the right side or hug the left side, I can tell you exactly how to correct that. The problem with that, if you're having trouble tracking your car, it's because you are looking too close to your car. When you're driving, it's just like walking. You have to look out 20 seconds, quarter mile, in order to get perspective. Just as if I were to try to walk in a straight line looking down at my feet, you can't do it. Or looking up in the air, you can't do it. You have to look straight out. So if you're having trouble tracking, it's because you're not looking up. You've got to look up and look out in order to get perspective. But I'm going to show you reference points that's going to help you know exactly where your car is at all times. Because you actually have different positions in your lane. You're in this big lane, right? You have different positions in there. You can be in the center of your lane. That would be position 1. And you're going to most of the time be in position 1, right? You can be in the side of your lane. Can you think of times when you're going to be right side? When would, yeah, when there's a hazard on the left or a blind curve or blind hill in a rural area, you're going to want to be over here always, always. You go around a blind curve, blind hill, be on your side of the road because you don't have any guarantee the other guy will be. Or you might be over here on the left. This is lane position 3. Over on the left-hand side, when would there be a time that you would do this?
If there's a hazard on the right-hand side.
Yeah, or maybe even a pedestrian or a bicycle, okay? Something that you can share the lane with. Now, you can share the lane with anything that is propelled by human motion. So you can share the lane with a skateboard, a scooter, a bicycle. That means as long as you give them 3 feet, you can still be in the lane. So you might want to be all the way over on this left-hand side, right? Or it could be a pothole, anything. A bad shoulder sometimes, you know, out in the country, the shoulders are bad. Now I'm going to tell you how to know where you are in your lane. When you're in this lane position 1 right here, you have 5 reference points on your car. Your reference points, like I said, are points you can see on your car that show you where you are in relationship to the road you can't see. Your reference points are the center of your car, your 2 side mirrors, and your back door handles. Those are the reference points that we use. Now you can't see your back door handles, right? But you know where they are. So when you want to be in the center of your lane and you want to check, looking at this line, now this is perspective. This line will look like it runs right through the center of the passenger side of the hood. It's just right to the center of your car. Looks like it runs right through your passenger. You are in the center of your lane, okay? Now you can't drive looking at that line. So you're going to glance over there and you can see where you are, right? But when you're driving, the line of sight is your path of travel. You're looking up, right? But say you have to get way over for a blind curve and you can't really tell. There's mailboxes over here and you're worried about hitting that mailbox. When this white line is running right dead center through the middle of your car, you still have 6 inches on this side. You can get all the way over to where that white line's running right through the center of your car. You're still not off the road. And when you're way over here, because there's somebody over here, but you don't want to get in this lane because of oncoming traffic, this line here will appear to run right underneath your left side view mirror, or sometimes they will say right through your headlight, but you can't see your headlight. You can see your left mirror. Runs right underneath your left mirror. You still have 6 inches on this side before you are over. Now your front reference points, you're pulling into a parking spot. Your front reference point is going to be the front mirrors. So you're pulling into a parking spot in a grocery store and you can't tell how close you are to this car over here. When this curb or this line, that's the definition of the end of your parking spot, appears to run right under your mirrors, you have 6 inches. Now this is approximate. If you drive a car like mine, mine's a little bit longer in the front. If I do that, then I'm up on that curb. You have to get in your driveway and pull your car up and get out and look. But it's approximate, okay? So I know for my car, I need to actually just be right in front of my mirrors to be that distance. When you are backing into a parking spot, you want this line to run through your back door handles. You are still 6 inches from the curb. Those are what you call reference spots. So you're down in Carytown and you're parallel parking. Now when you're parallel parking, you need to be 6 to 12 inches from the curb. So you can get in here and you can parallel park and you can see that the curb appears to run right through the middle of your car. You're fine. You can also use these reference points as parking tools, okay? You're going to park in this, you're going to back into this parking space. What you want to do is back up until your back bumper is in the middle of the lane beside the one you're going in. Here's the lane you're going in. You're going to back your car up until your back door handle is lined up to this first line, and then cut the wheels all the way, and it will take you right into the center of that thing. So you use that back reference point and just turn and cut back in. The same is true with pulling in. When you're pulling in, the reference point is going to be your mirror lining up to this first line. So learn your reference points on your car. Now they vary a little bit with your car, but when you're driving your car, you will learn that. Now some people don't need reference points. My personal opinion of driving has a lot to do with your vision. If you have really good vision, which, you know, there's several people in my family who have 22 vision, you have really good depth perception and you may not need reference points. But if you have a little trouble figuring things out, reference points are a great aid for you to use. The laws in Virginia, one of the laws this year that has really been, you probably have seen it advertised a lot because they're making a big deal out of it, is called the Move Over Law. Has anybody heard of the Move Over Law? Do y'all know what the Move Over Law is? What is the Move Over Law?
I don't know what it is, just heard it.
You've heard them speak of it? Well, the Move Over Law states this. If you are driving an emergency vehicle, that includes a policeman, or a vehicle with lights flashing and sirens on comes up behind you, the Move Over Law states that you must pull over to the side and stop and let that vehicle pass. Now that works great when you're out on a 2-lane road. If you're out on a rural road and there's an emergency vehicle behind you, pull on the shoulder and let them go by. But when you're sitting in an intersection and you're in the left-hand lane and an emergency vehicle comes up behind you, what would you do then? Well, let me tell you what you do not want to do. Do not go left. Do not go into the left lane into oncoming traffic. Do not make a left-hand turn. You want to, as much as possible, get to the right. Now, emergency vehicles, when they're coming to an intersection, they're going to be changing that light at most of the major intersections, right? They're sending a signal to change that light to green so that they can go through. So if you're in a situation where it's heavy traffic, the best thing for you to do is try to move over to the right as much as possible, or be still and let the emergency vehicle maneuver around you if you cannot make a space for yourself. You'll notice people will begin to separate and let them get by, but never go to the left. You are permitted by law, if you're the first person at that intersection, you may make a right-hand turn and then pull over onto the shoulder. Or if you are in a roundabout, you know what I'm talking about? A traffic circle, go through the circle and then pull over after you get on the other side of the circle. That's the first half of the Move Over Law. The second half of the Move Over Law says that if you are on a multi-lane road, several lanes traveling in the same direction, you know, an interstate or whatever, and there's several lanes in the same direction, and there is flashing lights of any kind. Somebody is hauling a car, there's, you know, a construction worker, or if it's a policeman, whatever it is, if there's flashing lights on that shoulder, you are, if possible, supposed to change lanes and leave the lane adjacent to the accident or the flashing lights, leave them that lane empty, okay? That's so you don't run over those guys. You know, there's a lot of those policemen that are involved in accidents because they've pulled somebody over on the side of the road. So if possible, now the law does say if possible. If you cannot pull over, then there's nothing you can do about it. But if you can, try to leave them. That's the Move Over Law. Try to leave them that space. The state of Virginia has a point system on their driver's license and a demerit system. When you get your driver's license from DMV, you have 0 points. Every year that you drive without a violation, you get 1 point on your driver's license, up to 5 positive points. You can never have more than 5 positive points. Whenever you have a moving violation, you will be given demerit points and you will lose your positive points. There are varying different offenses that carry different points. For example, a reckless driving ticket, which can be a felony also, is 6 demerit points, and it stays on your record for 11 years. Now that's your record. The demerit points on your license will be removed after 2 years. Demerit points only stay on your driver's license for 2 years, but they stay on your record longer than that. A DUI and a reckless driving offense are first-class misdemeanors. They will stay on your record for 11 years. Did you know that in the state of Virginia, you must always signal? If you're in the right turn lane and you're going right, you must signal. If you're in the left turn lane and you're going left, you must signal. If you are changing lanes, you must signal. Anytime you are going to go in a different direction in Virginia, you must signal. Always be sure you do. If you are parked on the edge of a road, parallel parked, and you pull out without signaling, that's a 4-point violation, and it stays on your record for 3 years. For more information about moving violation and point assessments, you may call DMV at 804-497-7100 for the information, or you can get a brochure from DMV by writing Virginia Department of Motor Vehicles, P.O. Box 27412, Richmond, Virginia 23269. Another law that is in Virginia that I don't know if you're aware of is called the Good Samaritan Law. Does anybody know what that is? The Good Samaritan Law states this: if you are the first person at the scene of an accident, the guy in front of you is involved in an accident, or you're the first person there, you must by law stop. You stop, you turn off the vehicles, you check on the occupants. If they're, bleeding, and you want to stop the bleeding, yes, but do not do extensive first aid. You're not a medical personnel and you haven't been called to the scene for that capacity. But if you stop, you turn off the thing, you call for help, and you stay with them until help arrives. That's your legal responsibility. You must do that. That's called the Good Samaritan Law. And yes, there are extenuations for your protection under that law that I'm not going to go into in this class, but it's a very elaborate law. To know all of what that law states, you go into this website, www.dmvnow.com. This website right here will anything you want to know. There's also what they call the pickup truck law in Virginia. What the pickup truck law says is that you must be 16 years of age or older in order to ride in the back of a pickup truck. Another one of the administrative laws in Virginia we have admin per se laws. These are laws that can result in an administrative suspension of your driver's license. One of those is what they call the implied consent law. The implied consent law says that you are implying that you will consent to a BAC test if you are asked to take one. Now, a blood alcohol concentration test can be administered on the roadside by a policeman where you blow into a tube and it registers how much alcohol content is in your blood. If you refuse to take that test, an administrative law, the implied consent law, automatically kicks in and your license is suspended for a year for refusal to take that test. That's called the implied consent law. In Virginia, it is also against the law to be driving in the rain with your windshield wipers on without your lights on. That's a law in Virginia. You must turn on your lights whenever you are using your windshield. It is against the law in Virginia to have snow on the top of your car accumulated, because that thing can blow off and be a hazard for the person behind you. It's against the law to do that. It is against the law in Virginia to ever cross over a solid line of any color. So if you're making a left-hand turn and you miss those dotted lines, you have broken a law in Virginia. It is against the law in Virginia to ever drive on the shoulder. You may not cross over onto a shoulder in order to pass on the right or drive for any reason other than an emergency. In the case of a funeral, you must always yield to a funeral. Now, it used to be that the lights were on and you could tell it was a funeral procession, but now because everyone drives with their daylight running lights, which is a good idea, they will have police in front, sometimes as many as 2 police cars with flashing lights, and there will be someone at the end of that funeral procession. You may never get into the middle of that. You must always yield in respect to a funeral procession. In Virginia, we have a reckless driving law, which is either a felony or a misdemeanor. Reckless driving means speeding in excess of 80 miles per hour. That is a first-class misdemeanor and it will stay on your record for 11 years. A reckless driving offense carries $250 fine, first offense. Reckless driving is also considered speeding 20 miles an hour or more above the posted speed limit. Reckless driving is racing. Reckless driving is passing or overtaking an emergency vehicle. Reckless driving is passing a school bus. Reckless driving includes passing on the crest of a hill. Reckless driving is passing at a railroad crossing. Reckless driving is passing two vehicles abreast. Reckless driving is driving too fast for the road conditions, which means you can get a reckless driving ticket going under the speed limit if the road conditions or the traffic conditions are not conducive to that speed. The speed limit laws is the ultimate speed or the maximum speed you can go. That is in dry asphalt, normal traffic conditions. Reckless driving is failing to give a proper signal. Reckless driving includes faulty equipment, faulty brakes, or improper control. Reckless driving is driving carelessly or recklessly on parking lots. Reckless driving also includes generally reckless driving. So reckless driving is a serious offense. It is a first-class misdemeanor, and in some counties in the state of Virginia, it is mandatory 3 days jail time. You do not want to get a reckless driving ticket.